The top story this hour: scam news stories of massacres emerging with false graphic image to campaign against Ethiopian government. And geopolitical analyst says TPLF using looted $30 billion to shout loud through lobbyists and media. Hello, this is Addis News Hour. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. The Ethiopian Current Issues fact check last week alerted all concerned entities that the TPLF was planning to use the dead bodies of its child soldiers and civilians it recruited for war as victims of massacres committed against the people of Tigray by putting the bodies in mass graveyards. 1 week on, cooked news stories of massacres are emerging with false graphic images to campaign against the Ethiopian government, the fact check discloses. With more in the story. It is to be recalled that the Ethiopian government has accused the TPLF of recruiting child soldiers and forcing thousands of civilians to go to war fronts without their consent. A week ago, the Ethiopian Current Issues fact check announced that the TPLF were planning to use the dead bodies of its child soldiers for its propaganda campaign. The clique, the fact check said, was preparing graveyards to put the bodies of its dead soldiers in mass so that it can accuse government forces of committing massacres against the people of Tigray. An eyewitness who spoke on condition of anonymity with the TV said he saw bodies of the TPLF forces transported from war fronts to graveyards where they were supposed to be buried in mass.
We have seen body full of Sinotrax transported towards Segogwa and Aksum. Last time, they have been accusing government forces of committing massacres in Segogwa. I think they are taking the bodies to falsely justify that. When the people tried to see what they were digging, they wanted everyone to stay home.
Reports have also been emerging that the TPLF is throwing corpses of its soldiers into the Tekeze River as its graveyards were overwhelmed by the dead. On Monday, the Washington Post came up with a story of corpses floating on the Tekeze River, quoting eyewitnesses who spoke with some media outlets in Sudan. The story tried to assert that civilians were killed and thrown away to the river. The Ethiopian Current Fact Check is now warning the world not to be deceived by the reviving propaganda campaign disseminated by the TPLF, supported by false graphic images. The National Disaster Risk Management Commission has rejected push by Western countries and their institutions for the opening of a new aid corridor via Western Tigray. The move for the opening of a new corridor under the pretext of delivering aid to Tigray is unacceptable, said Mutuku Kasa, Commissioner of National Disaster Risk Management Commission. The federal government, in close collaboration with the Afar regional state, has been delivering aid to the people of Tigray, the commissioner said. Aid delivery has been affected as 170 trucks bound for Tigray with food blocked by the terrorist TPLF, which is currently also carrying out attacks on the Amhara and Afar regional states, rejecting a federal government's unilateral ceasefire decision, he said. Some Western countries and their institutions have requested for the opening of aid corridor to Tigray via Sudan, which is unacceptable, the commissioner said. A geopolitical analyst says TPLF is using $30 billion it looted from Ethiopians to shout loud through lobbyists and global media outlets. It is a pity that global media praise the use of child soldiers by TPLF, he criticized. Suntayo Tamrat reports.
After the TPLF attacked the National Defense Force North Command in November 2020, the federal government reacted by commencing law enforcement operation that took 3 weeks. Despite the heinous act committed by the TPLF terrorist group, certain governments deliberately opted to put pressure on the Ethiopian government, urging it to stop the law enforcement operation. But there was no other option for the federal government than protecting its citizens' well-being and maintaining national unity. Senior researcher of international diplomacy and political science and geopolitical analyst in the Horn of African region, Worko Jacob told ETV English.
It's a pity that the international community, they became silent, and with this step that this was taken by the TPLF, it's actually a declaration of war. It's like when you attack a national army, so the implication is insurmountable. If this would have happened by the Italian mafia or the Italian National Defense Force, the international community would have joined by condemning this activity, but which they did not. They didn't do in the case of Ethiopia, and it's actually an acceptable act, and it's actually a kind of a threat posed on the state. So, the Ethiopian state actually acted its mandate, because it's one of your mandate is to protect your citizens from any kind of a threat. When a kind of weird entity which poses such a threat, then what you could do is you retaliate, so which the Ethiopian government did.
Work warns that the financial and propaganda power of TPLF clique should not be undermined. The terrorist group is using the $30 billion it looted from Ethiopians to shout loud through lobbyists and global media outlets.
And there are reports that, credible reports that shows that almost $30 billion have been looted from the country. So where is that money? It has suffocated Western banks. So they have lobbyists. So the so-called independent medias internationally, they're actually recruited. Some of the journalists are recruited to propagandize their agenda. And also they have good friends over the years that they have established using the Ethiopian resource, using the Ethiopians institutions. They have friends in all organizations. So they give them information, So these lobbyists are actually shouting at the same pace, at the same time.
It is a pity global media outlets have turned a blind eye to the use of child soldiers by the TPLF, he criticized. The Ethiopian government needs to exert extra effort in exposing the terror attacks of TPLF to the global community, Worko advised.
The use of child soldiers, internationally, it's a war crime. You see? I was surprised when the New York Times, this came on their cover page. You see, this actually, if really these institutions are there to give a credible information to the societies, and if they abide by international law, they should be actually tried, because it's the war crime to use child soldiers. So they appreciated this, and they did not say anything on the use of child soldiers. Yeah, so the Ethiopian government should really expose this to the international community, which it has been doing, and subsequent efforts should be implemented on telling them this is inhuman to do so, and it's a criminal act.
Before accusing the government of Ethiopia and trying to put pressures, some global actors must listen to both sides if they want to intervene with the matter in a manner that fits the national interest of the country, as well as Ethiopia's strong desire for unity and territorial integrity. Worku suggested.
The government has been accusing the TPLF of disseminating deliberate disinformation so as to confuse the general public and the international community. Apart from injecting disinformation about the killing and resignation of Ethiopian senior officials, the TPLF clique is coming up with all sorts of lies, such as controlling various places. Haptam Ashagri tells us more.
Recently, the TPLF gangs are disseminating disinformation to confuse the general public and the international community. The TPLF has also released disinformation related with the law enforcement operation managed by the federal forces after the northern command in the state of Tigray was attacked.
They have misinformed the general public about the construction of GERD. After we have seen the reality, the general public understood their distortion of the fact. Thus, it's better to stay away from social media propagating their false narratives.
We have seen some unrelated posters which have not happened in Ethiopia. They are working to create ethnic conflicts and tensions to destabilize Ethiopia. This tendency brings social, political and economic disadvantage.
Public Relations Director at Ethiopian National Defense Force, Getnet Adana, for his part said, TPLF is trying its best to terrorize the general public by disseminating disinformation.
The terrorist TPLF is misinforming and echoing havoc so far. They release information against the fact on the ground. It shows how TPLF is unaccountable and irresponsible to what they do. They tell you they are controlling Waldea, or even they are settling in Waldea. They can even tell you they are in Entoto or Addis Ababa without anyone blocking them.
The Ethiopian National Defense Force calls upon the general public to stand together against the misleading and inhuman acts of the terrorist TPLF cliques.
ሀገራችን የምንወድሽ ለጅብ ይሁን እንጂ ለአሞራ ስጋችን አንቺ አትደፈሪም ይፈሳል ደማችን ተከብረሽ ኑርሽው በአባቶቻችን በአባቶቻችን እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም አንድ ላይ የደፈረሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም ተከብረሽ ኖርሽው አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም አባቶቻችን ደም እናት ኢትዮጵያ የደፈረሽው ደም የደፈረሽው ደም
This is Addis News Hour. Ethiopia's ambassador to Italy, Dimitru Hambisa, had a fruitful discussion on current domestic and regional issues regarding Ethiopia with Adolfo Urso, President of the Parliamentary Committee for the Security of Italy. The discussion between the two sides highlighted the destructive activities of the TPLF group, issues of common concern on the Horn of Africa, as well as the situation regarding the GERD. The ambassador presented briefings on the activities of the government of Ethiopia regarding the humanitarian assistance for the Tigray region and explained the reckless acts of the TPLF that obstructed humanitarian aid heading to the region. She also said the irresponsible group has continued attacking the neighboring regions of Afar and Amhara and recruiting child soldiers in violation of the international humanitarian law. Ambassador Demitu further called on the international community to condemn such irresponsible acts of the terrorist group. According to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Adolfo also appreciated the briefing on current issues in Ethiopia and the situation in the Tigray region and pledged to provide all the necessary support whenever needed.
At the very end, I saw a statue about when they celebrated their 100th anniversary or something like that. And the river has two sides. One side is like painted the regional flag, and then on that side is like an Ethiopian flag. So we walked over to that side to just see, you know, and then after that we just went to the middle of the town.
Crocodiles, and I could be eaten. So I can't go near water or near any ponds because I'll get eaten. And as you can see over there, you can see kids swimming, but apparently they know the signs of when a crocodile's coming, and I don't, so I'm not allowed to swim. Kind of harsh, but you know, what can you do?
Welcome back. You're watching Addis News Hour. Ethiopian soldiers serving under the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, in Sector 4 based at Beletawene, Hirshabelle State, on Thursday completed a 4-week military training and drill aimed at enhancing the AMISOM troops' combat readiness. The training drew participants from the various formations, including the tank, artillery, snipers, and ground forces. During the training, the troops were taken through various modules, which included maneuver and weapon training to enhance their effectiveness and rapid deployment ability. AMISOM Deputy Sector 4 Commander Colonel Yeshwas Karabat congratulated the soldiers upon the successful completion of the training and urged them to make the best use of their skills acquired. In Sector 4, ANDF troops operate alongside the Djibouti Armed Forces and the Somali National Army to conduct operations aimed at degrading Al-Shabaab terrorists. Badr Ethiopia, International Ethiopian Muslims Organization, has collected over $1 million for the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam in a fundraising campaign conducted in connection to the second round filling of the dam. The stated fund for the good secured in a campaign organized by Badr Ethiopia in collaboration with the Ethiopian Embassy in Washington with the theme, "It is my time," it was indicated. Though the campaign was organized by Badr, other Ethiopians and Ethiopian origin residing in the US have shown their unity and solidarity by actively participating in the campaign. The Ethiopian ambassador to the US, Fitsum Arega, said, "Achievement registered within a very short period of time clearly demonstrates how the diaspora community is capable if it is united for a national cause."
Main boulevard here, Liberation Avenue.
We are in the main avenue, the Haranet Avenue. We are in front of the cathedral that was built in the 1930s. Also this avenue in the old days, back in the 50s, it had more traffic lights than Rome.
Super old Italian cars everywhere on the roads. So we are hitching a ride in a 1963 Fiat? Is it a Fiat? Renault. What do you like so much about a trio? And even many of the people here, especially the older generation, can speak and understand Italian fluently.
La macchina che va dappertutto. A car that goes anywhere.
This car?
Yeah, this car.
That's awesome.
And finally, South Sudan on Monday swore in hundreds of lawmakers to a newly created national parliament. In all, 588 MPs, a mix of delegates from the ruling party and former rebel factions who signed the truce, took the oath of office at a ceremony in Juba presided over by the Chief Justice. Like several other urgent and crucial provisions of the peace accords, the convening of Parliament went long unfulfilled, eroding trust between the political rivals that are unified in a tenuous coalition after the war. It comes nearly a year behind schedule and remains incomplete, with 62 MPs absent from the swearing-in ceremony, some because of squabbles with the government over the power-sharing arrangement. Daniel Awet, deputy of the ruling SPLM party, hailed the occasion as a show of unity. President Salva Kiir did not attend the event, according to Africa News. Before we go, a quick reminder of our top stories. Scam news stories of massacres are emerging with false graphic images to campaign against the Ethiopian government. And geopolitical